books all the time, and she's very good at reading. And my son is is a bit of a lazy one, a bit of a less enthusiastic reader. So, and he's a mad football fan, you know, loves all sport, plays a lot of tennis, and we wanted to try and find something that he was really interested in, and football obviously he is, and you know, to create a story that he knows obviously I've been involved in, that we've also explained to him that there's a lot of the story is based on our own experiences as kids, and that his mum's in the book, and you know, because she's a major character in the book, excited him, you know, and he's now at the age at 9 years old where he really sort of has taken to the books. He's read the first 2 books, he's halfway through the 3rd book, and that's just all by himself. You know, he wakes up early in the morning, first thing he does, he picks up his book and starts to read, and that just wouldn't have happened before. You know, so to have this sort of book available to him, you know, I think is priceless, and you know, I would have loved to have been in that situation as a kid growing up as well.
And what about your time at Marconi? What are the best memories, some of the characters you played with?
Oh, it's amazing when I think back about, you know, the type of players that I've played with at Marconi. You talk about Peter Catholis, the Cat, you know, and you talk about Steve Calderon, Tony Henderson, Bob Catlin, Slavko Nastevsky, Bertie Mariani was the manager, David Lowe, Mark Jones, Ian Gray, you know, the list goes on, you know, Paul Ocon, Klaus Ocon, Junior and Senior. I mean, it's from football fans around Australia, you know, those names are sort of so iconic in football. You know, that team back then, Tom McCulley, you know, like I said, I mean, it keeps John Paul de Marinigo, Ren Egmont, Fred de Jong, you know, it goes on and on and on, and you know, I was there since I was 15 years old and left when I was 21, so I played 2 and a bit years in the NSL, the old NSL, was lucky enough to win the league one season with Frank Arrock, again, another iconic figure in Australian football, and you know, I had a tremendous time, and those times were probably my most enjoyable football times.
A move to Germany back in 1994, you had short stints with Dresden and Kaiserslautern, but it didn't work out. Why was that?
For things not to work out well at the club, being relegated, but I played 2 games and played well enough in those games to be noticed by another big club in Kaiserslautern. And unfortunately, due to various reasons, you know, the club not having the financial support that they had, or decided to renovate the stadium rather than invest in the team more heavily, they sold their best players and replaced the rest of them with players out of the lower divisions or players that had been relegated with previous teams. So that was obviously a tough time, and you know, I didn't get a lot of opportunities. The one opportunity I did get in Kaiserslautern, you know, I didn't really take the opportunity. So, you know, for me, it was a big learning curve. And I wouldn't change anything, because I think that time, that 2.5 years in Germany, really hardened me up and matured me out of this world. And, you know, I got to know what it was like to be at the deep, you know, the lowest point you can be in your career. I mean, I had times where I seriously considered, you know, chucking in the towel and coming back home to Australia and trying to start all over again. And at that time, I had the support of who's now my wife, but my girlfriend at the time. And you know, she always said to me, you know, to stick at it, and if I believed in myself enough, that the opportunities would come along eventually, and you know, that a change of scenery was probably my best option, and that's how the move to England came about.
And you first went to Bradford, and then 11 years at Teesside. Why was Mark Schwarzer and Middlesbrough such a good fit?
You know, they were a club that at the time when I was in England playing for Bradford City, they were really going places. They wanted to really create this side in the northeast that could be very competitive. And, you know, the chairman splashed out enormous amounts of money on bringing in Juninho, Ravanelli and Emerson to the club. And they had some issues throughout the season with goalkeepers. And, you know, I just happened to come around Christmas time and play for Bradford City and play well enough. Had a clause in my contract, and the goalkeeping coach, who ironically is now the Fulham goalkeeping coach and assistant manager, you know, took a fancy to me and you know, recommended me to Brian Robson to go out and buy me. And in that time I was there, we got, I think, about 5 cup finals, and unfortunately we only won 1 of them. But you know, that was very significant in the club's history. You know, 2004, winning the Carling Cup final, and for the first time ever winning a major trophy in the club's history. I think 150,000 people turned out on you know, a town tour, you know, on the open deck bus, freezing our backsides off at the time, and it was an amazing experience and memories that will last for a long, long time. And then qualifying for Europe, you know, that was the first time in the club's history, in the first season getting to the quarterfinals, and then that same season, by right of finishing 7th in the league, qualifying again for the UEFA Cup, being able to attract players like Mark Viduka and like Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank to the club, Bola Zenden. these sort of players coming to the club because of European football was something that, you know, Middlesbrough never had before.
Could you ever consider that your debut season for Fulham, you'd be named Player of the Year, play under Roy Hodgson, qualify again for European football? Is that beyond your dreams?
Yeah, I mean, the way the season unfolded was amazing. I always believed in my own ability, and I always believed that I wasn't finished. And that was the indication I got from Middlesbrough. You know, I felt that, you know, there was a change in goalkeeping coaches. Paul Barron, who'd left the club, to me was one of the best goalkeeping coaches I've ever worked with. He moved on and went to Newcastle. You know, they showed made no attempt really to keep him at the club, which was, you know, a major disappointment to me. So, for me, it was a no-brainer. You know, I had a chance to go to bigger clubs, but, you know, I would have sat on the bench. You know, for me to look back in my career then to say, well, I was at a club like Bayern Munich, or I was at a club like Juventus, and maybe played a handful of games, but, you know, other than that, no more, was something that I just couldn't do. I mean, some other people like that. Some other people are happy to sit on the bench. It's just not for me. You know, if I have a choice, if I have an opportunity to play, I'll play, you know, every day of the week. And for me, Fulham was just a perfect match.
Two of your Socceroos teammates, Jason Kalina and Mile Sturgiowski, are coming back to Australia to play in the A-League. Mark, is it your stated aim, or do you have a goal of finishing your career in Australia?
I'm not sure. At this stage, it's not something that's on my mind. I've got one more year left on my contract at Fulham, and you know, the World Cup's next year. And for me, you know, in my opinion, it's vitally important that I stay in Europe and play at the highest level, in particular up until the World Cup. And I really just want to assess things after that. I mean, you know, I feel at this stage, I feel like I can keep going on for another couple of years, you know, still at least. And, you know, I want to continue, hopefully, to have a good season next season with Fulham. Hopefully we can continue to make progression, to hopefully progress well in the Europa League, create new history at the club, which we did this season, and finishing in the highest ever position in the Premier League for the club, highest ever points tally, or highest amount of clean sheets ever kept at the club. So, you know, there's a lot of records that you can sort of rewrite the history books at a club like Fulham, as it were like at Middlesbrough. So I'm excited about all that, and I'm excited that the club want me so desperately. And that's, you know, most of the time, that's half the battle. And I can understand people like Mile coming back to Australia and playing for Perth, signing for Perth, because, you know, Perth and Dave Mitchell were desperate for him to sign for him. And that is invaluable to a player, you know, having a club that's so far, you know, so much behind you, and that can really, you know, give you a new lease of life, like it has for me at Fulham.
And jump online from tomorrow at sbs.com.au/The World Game, and you'll be able to see Twitter questions answered by Mark, and there's some very interesting ones at that. We'll also bring you part 2 of our exclusive chat with Mark Schwarzer next week, where amongst other things, he opens up about the spirit.
From the Frenchwoman after what was a below average start.